Viewers, we're almost 2 weeks into the Middle East war, but the world is beginning to pay a rather heavy price. Back in India, we've seen how the conflict has disrupted LPG supply in the country, particularly in the commercial sector. But this is just one of the many examples of the global fallout of the conflict. But neither side is looking to back down at the moment, and all the attention is on the Strait of Hormuz. Now, Iran is looking to choke the Strait of Hormuz, and this will have massive global ramifications. Iran has claimed that it will now lay mines across the Strait of Hormuz, the energy choke point that carries 1/5 of all crude oil globally. But what exactly is in Iran's arsenal? And is this really possible? Let's try and explain this to you, tell you more of what exactly is happening and what are the kind of mines that are going to be used by Iran or are being used by Iran. The first up is the influence mines. Now, these are triggered by sound or magnetic fields hidden on the seabed. So as a ship passes, they can remotely trigger these mines. Let's get in the next set of mines that we're talking about. These are limpet mines where a diver can physically attach them to the ship's hull, and this causes an explosion as well after a certain period of time. There are also moored mines, which are sensor-based explosives which are used to choke the narrow waterways where they'll be attached to the ground as well, and with a movement, of course, can be triggered off. There are bottom mines, of course, that lie on the seabed. That's perhaps not the most accurate representation, but it's supposed to be right on the seabed, not floating on the sea, where, in fact, they rely on sensors and contain a much larger explosive charge than the earlier ones because of the impact. Now, this is as far as the mines are concerned. Let's quickly try and explain this. In fact, all right, there's some breaking updates coming in at this point of time. And in fact, we have more information coming in. All right, this is in fact the Strait of Hormuz itself. Why is this particular area important, and what is really the challenge over here? This is the island of Abu Musa. This is one of the many islands that are disputed within the Strait of Hormuz between Iran and the UAE. But why is this significant? Because we are told on several of these islands, Iran has actually managed to secure its military bases. And that is quite significant because it can use those military bases as well to attack the passing ships, which have to naturally move towards Iran while they navigate the Strait of Hormuz. So the very geography of the area is not just the fact that it's very narrow, but also within that narrow area, there are islands which Iran controls, which makes it extremely difficult for them to navigate. All right, we're also told there's a quick update coming in. An Iranian drone has targeted the port of Salalah in Oman, triggering explosions and a large fire in several fuel storage tanks. Local media from Oman says that no casualties have been reported at the moment. So that's the latest coming in as far as the pictures there from Oman is concerned. Yet another fuel storage facility that's been targeted by an Iranian drone, this time in the port of Salalah in Oman, triggering explosions and a large fire scene over there. Let's quickly open this up and take it across to our guests. And let me bring in fact, introduce our panel here. Commodore Dr. A.S. Bahel is with us. He's an ex-Indian Air Force fighter pilot. We have Commander V.K. Jetli, who's a INS Virat veteran. We have Major General Sanjay Soy, retired defense expert as well. Let me start with you first. Commander Jetli, these mines that are being put in place, explain the operation of this and why is this so deadly? Of course, there's a huge amount of traffic movement, not just of oil, of international trade as well that happens through there. What makes this such a challenge? Is demining the biggest area? How are we looking at US tackling this challenge?
See, these mines are the most cost-effective method of destroying ships, let me tell you. They are very, very cheap compared to many other weapons which are required. And laying of these mines also is not very costly at all. However, when you have to remove this, that's a much costlier operation, you can call it, when you have to remove it. And as you have just now explained, there are various types of mines. There are some which just sit on the bed, seabed. Now they are put wherever the water is quite shallow. In the deep waters, you keep mooring ones where they are just below the surface of the sea, just below. And they just keep floating there. And as far as their detonation is concerned, it could be direct impact. It could be depending upon the acoustics or the noise of the ship, which the so-called they call acoustic signature. Based on that, they just explode. Or on the magnetic signature of the ships. Every ship has a different magnetic signature. So they just sense it and then they explode. There could be two ships, one is friendly ship and one could be enemy ship. It could detonate only the enemy ship depending upon their signature. The friendly ship will not get detonated. That also happens.
Okay.
So these type of things are there. And I believe Iran's 16 mines layers, they have been destroyed yesterday, today. So probably their mine laying capacity is still there, by the way, let me tell you. They can drop it with the help of helicopters. With normal speedboat also they can
smaller boats as well.
Yes,
smaller
they
vessels
they can use them.
So that's very significant because you know what this means, Major Sanjay Soy, is that their ability to strike at these ships, even though these mine layers may have been destroyed, but who knows what really their response will be. Maybe they'll just double down and increase the laying of these mines because they know the kind of havoc that it can cause.
Yeah, Madhav, in fact, what Commander Jetli has already explained, one is mines. And even if US deploys the mine sweepers, it takes time. It is not very easy. It is very, very time consuming and very, very challenging work where different types of mines are there. And till then, actually, the whole traffic can stop. Even the export of oil from Iran will also get hampered. That is one point. Second thing, if you see the map of Gulf of Hormuz, then on the
Here's
north...
the map. The map is right here. You can see that. That's a greater... In fact, you can come here. You can come here and explain. This is Abu Musa that I just explained. This is the lesser tomb and the greater tomb. This is the area that we were talking about. So which is the point that you say is makes it very difficult?
One of these islands are there. 3 islands, and these are all already disputed. So they have assets there. Besides that, they also have Bandar Lange here. Then they have a Bandar Khamir. Then Bandar Abbas is a major port. And then ahead is a Chabar. And in between there is a Konark port is there. And they ports start right from here. So they are can keep an eye of the movement of the ship. And there are
multiple opportunities to hit. There are multiple opportunities.
They can use drones. Once the mines are also destroyed, then they can use drones, they can use missiles. Unless these areas are also cleared, there is a challenge to keep the Gulf of Hormuz.
So when US says that we're going to move our warships along with all of these transport cargo ships, US is making that threat. But practically speaking, that would be very difficult for them to secure, even if they physically move along. That's what you're saying.
Yes. Because they can use other means also.
No, there is something like tactical maneuvering space. That is just not available. If you look at this, it's just 33 kilometers, which means if you leave a few kilometers here, there is a 2-kilometer width, which is for the one that is outbound, and there is another 2 kilometers for gap, and then 2 kilometers for inbound. So there is hardly anything. This total 11 miles, and if you are having 2 miles, you find that there is hardly any width left thereafter. That is one. So there is no tactical maneuvering space. The other important aspect is these 3 islands that you mentioned. They have not just the air defense weapon system, they also have ballistic or cruise missiles and anti-ship missiles. Then you have underwater tunnels. And in this underwater tunnels, there are not only those small boat drones are also there, and missiles. You have tracks which is 12-meter wide. You can have a truck take a drone and that can come out, or a missile, and then the missile silo can come up like this, and from there the missiles can be launched. And these missiles could be either Qadr, it could be the other Noor, or it could even be Taleye. You know, the longest cruise missile that has about 1,000 kilometers of range. But more importantly, what is very important is, if you look at this area, this is so close to the land that any form of weapon system, whether it is swarm of drones, whether it is drone boats, because they're using drone boats, whether it is underwater unmanned vehicles, which they called it Asda, those vehicles, they can be used filled with explosives and go and hit against. And then the mines. Now, if the mines comes in, the problem is not of laying, because you can lay it by any method. Even a fishing vessel can lay it, or you can even use rocket launchers from here to lay it. The problem is, how do you remove? And where are the friendly lanes? Because Iran's own oil has to go out from here. And lastly, there is 20 million barrels per day it used to go from here. But more important is not the oil. More important is gas, which comes from Qatar.
From Qatar, all the way from there. So this is the entire Gulf. In fact, this is a whole region over here, starting from Qatar over there. Starting with Kuwait, I beg your pardon. Then there is Qatar, and there is Saudi, and there is UAE. So virtually for the entire Middle East, this is really the transit route. But I want to also understand from you, Commander Jetli, what is it that makes the Strait of Hormuz more sort of suitable for this transport? Is it because of sheer number of ports? Because what about the other side of the Middle East? Are the logistics, are the kind of arrangements that are there not in place for them to be able to export oil from the other side?
From the other side, if they have to go through the Red Sea. They have to go through the Suez Canal. They have to pay heavy amounts to cross the Suez Canal also. So much longer route.
Okay.
Like from India, if you see from here, the India is just there only.
Right.
Just next, very, very close. And if they have to follow that path, it is very, very far off. However, Saudi Arabia has started little bit transferring from that route also because it suits them little bit. Not very difficult.
But they have a pipeline in Saudi Arabia which goes to the Yanbu port, and that is where Red Sea comes in. So what they are doing is 25 super tankers are coming there, which are going to be filled with 50 million barrels of oil, and that also takes account 14 million. So 6 million is still short. And that is where the problem is. But more problem is gas and this Kharg Island.
Okay.
This is which the Americans want to capture.
This is basically the source of a huge chunk of Iran's operations that emanate from Kharg Island, and that is why hitting this is what US is planning. This is what we were told.
90% of oil goes from here. It's not that it is refining over there, it is the oil that is exported from here. And if America occupies this, even before this, in many other wars, they all wanted to ask America to take control of this island. That would choke off Iran. But America has been not doing it because it's a red line for Iran.
Right.
If they do it, then you might find desalination plants going off in Dubai or somewhere else, and it will actually be like a nuclear weapon.
Right. That's a very important point you're making. Desalination plants will be like a nuclear weapon. Why do you say that? Because
Dubai, let's take an example of Dubai. It has 41 lakh people. It has IT, data centers, gold, international aviation hub. Everything is there, transit hub. Now, when we look at Dubai, it has a few key desalination plants in the UAE which supply it with water. 90% of Dubai's water which comes to drink in their municipal taps comes from desalination
And I'm told
plants.
that even this Kashmir Island over there, even there we have some facilities of desalination that have been hit. So what really are we looking at in terms of the impact as far as Kashmir Island is concerned, and how does that translate into the reverse or the impact that will come in from Iran side as well? Because if you hit this side, they are sure to attack desalination plants on this side as well.
All Gulf countries, they depend on these desalination plants. So that is one of the targets. If they are destroyed, the people will just die of thirst. They will not have the water. And that's the most important thing today.
Right.
So it will become more important than the oil itself.
Right.
So
let's come back to our positions. If I can request you to please come back.
Vein, and the other is that desalination plant.
Yeah. So there are two or three things that we're looking at over here very clearly.
Of the cities, in case the desalination plant gets hit, 41 lakh people have to be moved out from Dubai. If we are just taking Dubai as an example, where are they going to go?
Right. Right. So that is going to be a huge concern as well if that happens, and that's why in fact there's this large urge coming in from India's side at least, that all sides have to ensure that they de-escalate at the very earliest. But coming back to this Kharg Island that we were talking about. Now, the fact that this is the biggest nerve center for Iran, why do you think after 11 days of war, US has not struck it yet, General Soy?
Because probably they wanted it intact. That is one thing. Because when the Israelis attack some refineries, they nudge them. They said, why are you attacking this? Because ultimately, if the regime changes, they want these assets also will come to them. That is one point. And second thing, maybe the oil spill and those things also can create a lot of problem, even for the subsequent movement in the sea.
Right, right. And in terms of the actual number of mines, if I can ask you, Commander Jetli, what is the number of mines that is estimated that Iran has? Is it in thousands? Is it tens of thousands? What are the numbers we're talking about?
The number which is coming in the various media is anything from 2,000 to 6,000. In one figure, as per the US intelligence agency, they said it 5,000 1 year back.
Right.
So as per that, it could be 6,000. So those type of mines they have with them, which they can lay. And one thing more I tell you, in addition to the mines, they have coastal batteries also. From there, they can fire on the ships. On the coastal battery along the coast also.
Right.
So that is also another, you can say, deterrent for the ships to come here.
Like I was saying, right from north to right up to the Chabar port, all along they have differences, coastal batteries are there. Those they've divided this in different parts.
Right. If they do, deploy all of these mines and different types of mines, and I wanted to comment on this, Comrade Yasbel, what is the time frame we are looking at to actually demine the entire area? Is it in months? Is it in years that we're talking about?
No, actually speaking, Americans have 3 mine hunters, as they call it. My commander would stand by me. So those 3 mine hunters are very far away. They would take weeks to come here. That is first. And now it depends on how many mines have been installed. Let us assume that there are just few dozens. Even then it will take few weeks, because the demining operation is extremely precise and extremely slow, because you don't want your own minesweepers to get hurt also. But at the same time, there are safety measures with the minesweepers and mine hunters that prevent even the explosion, controlled explosion that takes place to hurt them. But it is a very slow and a tedious process. That is one. Number 2 is the number of mines. Suppose they have got, like Commander was saying, 5,000 to 6,000 mines. Imagine even if they deployed 500 mines, 100 mines. Normally what they do is they always keep a friendly lane available for your own ships to maneuver. But in case the mines drift, in case they are surface mines, but they don't drift so much. But at the same time, if the mines number is very high, then you could be looking at even months.
Right. Right, and this is why I'm told, General, so you can come in on this, that US had dedicated minesweepers for the Gulf. But these were decommissioned just last year. There can't be anything more ironic than this.
Because probably they wouldn't have thought that this kind of emergency will come, and like Air Commodore just brought out, that they are far away. In fact, they have 3 of them, and they are far away. It will take some time, and definitely this kind of contingency, I think this is one contingency they missed out. This is otherwise very, very critical. They thought that because it will affect the export of oil from Iran also, so Iran will not take this step. But in desperation, they can do anything and everything. It doesn't matter to them. Casualties don't matter to them. Their own losses doesn't matter to them. Again, it depends on the country to country, how the country looks at it. Large number of body bags will have a major impact on USA. But those numbers of casualties may not have that kind of impact in Iran.
One thing I want to say on this, whenever you do war planning, because I was in College of Air Warfare as Deputy Commandant, what we do is a concept called red teaming. Red teaming means you sit in the shoes of the enemy, think like the enemy, then only can you plan a military strategy. But that's not been the way the Trump's Department of Defense or Ministry of War now is planning the operations. They have planned it with an intention that if we hit the politico-military leadership and if we have caused sufficient damage, there'll be a regime change. It didn't happen. That 440 kgs of nuclear enrichment, they would get it. It hasn't happened. So somewhere they have made a major mistake, both in terms of underestimating and at the same time not understanding the psyche of the military commanders of IRGC and that of the commander Mujtaba.
I think with the present situation, unless the regime change which is amenable to US and Israel, these problems will continue, because the next Mustafa or after that anybody else comes, it will be on the same thought process. So all the mine laying, mine sweeping will be possible only if there is a secure area. If the shores are secured. If those areas are not secured, again you can't do mine sweeping.
Right. Commander Jetli, a lot of issues in terms of the planning, perhaps the execution and even the planning, not enough homework was done. Can we now safely say that?
I will not say that enough homework was not done. Because the precise hit they did on the very first day, it can't be without a planning. Planning was very much there. They did plan. And beautifully they achieved a great achievement on the very first day.
No, that of course. It was a precision strike and it took out the leadership. That I agree. But in terms of planning, what the outcomes would be,
exactly.
Which is what
exit strategy. What the exit strategy, end game is going to be. Even now, if you ask Trump, what is your end game? Or like his own aides, they were asking him, please give your exit strategy. He has none. He doesn't even know. And that's why he gets Marco Rubio.
Is it regime change? Is it nuclear weapons? We've heard different things on different days. Every day there's a new target for the US government.
Yeah, in army there's a saying, no plan survives first contact with the enemy. So it is, you can plan anything, but what other person does, it is not in your hand.
Right.
And it is important is the strategy. And whether your political strategy is matching with your military strategy. And whether that military strategy is catering for contingencies, so if your initial aims and objectives have not been met. And that has not been done. This is where this is the weakness.
Right. You want to comment on that, Commander?
I just wanted to say regarding this clearance of mines. Air Commodore said that ships will take some time to reach there. I fully agree with them. But in addition to that, there are helicopters also, which can be deployed for this counter mine operations.
Okay.
They can just detonate them in that place itself.
Okay.
Detect and detonate.
Okay.
And just keep finishing them one after the other.
Right.
They can do a much faster job.
But this is not those mines which are deep in
the
Yeah.
sea.
Yeah, they are basically the ones which
Moved
are
one.
on the surface,
Just
or maybe
below the
just
surface.
1 to 3 meters underneath the surface.
Right. There's some updates also coming in from the United States. In fact, let's quickly bring up, and this is a New York Times report that we have that has in fact suggested that as per an ongoing U.S. military investigation, it's been determined that the U.S. is responsible for the Tomahawk missile strike on an Iranian elementary school because of a targeting mistake. That's the breaking update coming in the U.S. media. It's a New York Times report that suggests that as per the ongoing U.S. military investigation, it's been determined that U.S. is indeed responsible for the Tomahawk missile strike on an Iranian elementary school because of a targeting mistake. All right, let me quickly bring in our guests on this aspect. This has been hugely controversial because children have died. And Air Commodore ASBL, I mean, you may talk about collateral, but the fact is that this is the one thing that has led to the U.S. government becoming hugely answerable within the United States itself. And now this report coming out that it has been confirmed that it is indeed a U.S. missile.
See, it's a Tomahawk missile. We all can see that in the video. So there is no doubt. Even though Trump said this is a Tomahawk missile which had been stolen earlier by the Iranians, that's not true. And the second part to that comes in is these missiles are highly accurate. They have a very good circular error probable, which means the probability of hitting within a few meters of the intended target. This means that they had made a mistake in targeting itself.
Yes.
And another thing I want to highlight here, whether you look at the white phosphorus bomb being used by the Israelis and or the area weapons being used by Israelis as well as the Americans, tell me one thing. Why are they not following the principle of discrimination and principle of proportionality, which are the essential measures for international humanitarian law, even applicable during war? They are not doing that. So anything they make a mistake, it's okay. But if somebody else uses, like the cluster bombs that are being used by the Iranians on Tel Aviv, they point out that these are banned under the 2008 agreement. But both Iran, Israel, and America have not signed that agreement.
Right. And in fact, Major Soy, what was particularly controversial about this particular Minab strike is that it was a double tap. So even those who went in, say, parents or other adults to rescue those children, they were also victims of this strike.
So what happened during war also at times, I agree this will not be intentional because it doesn't serve any purpose.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't have any military objective as such. And second thing, at times, fake signals also generated. I don't know what was the true or false, but the Iran would not have expected any attack in that side. So that is not the possibility. It is definitely a calculation of error, and that has resulted in very unfortunate. But those are the things. But Air Commodore, what he has brought out is definitely right. The kind of weapons which are being used by the both sides, it has no human rights has no meaning left. And I think the international organizations have totally become defunct.
All right, and there's some quick updates coming in. In fact, Trump is speaking on Iran. He says we could do a lot worse. We're leaving certain things that we can take out. They literally would never be able to build that country back. You take responsibility for the Minab school strike. Military investigation has found out that the U.S. struck the school. He says, I don't know about it. On Iran, he says we took out just about all their mine ships in one night. Have they laid any mines in the Strait of Hormuz? We don't think so, says Trump. So interesting reactions coming in, but Trump still not commenting on the Minab strike, the one controversial point.
See, on Minab, I would like to add, in the terminal phase when the missile is fired, initially you give the target, etc., everything, lat long, etc., everything. In the terminal phase, its homing radar comes into picture. Now, it could be that the place where they had thought of hitting it, on the other hand, it homed on to that hostel, for the girls' hostel. There could be, as he said, some decoy already put there, so that it homes on to that. Because Iran is a state which doesn't mind if its people are killed in thousands. So IRGC center.
We should not point fingers on Iran like this. I think this is total speculation.
IRGC actually, it's just next to it. IRGC Naval Center.
So they've said it's a targeting mistake. Actually, they have admitted in the New York Times report that the army has found out that it's a targeting mistake. Perhaps they wanted to take out the military center. We don't know. But that's the only one thing that we can safely surmise. But very tragic when any civilian life is lost. It may be collateral, whatever it may be. The point is that there's a lot of such civilian lives that are being lost. And of course, whether it's Israel, whether it's Lebanon, whether it's Iran, certainly we hope that this civilian loss of lives and any loss of life for that matter comes down to the very least, and this kind of situation that we're seeing on ground that we saw in Minab also does not recur in any part of the world. Certainly, of course, a very unfortunate episode that we've seen. I'd like to thank all of you, Air Commodore A.S. Behel, Commander V.K. Jetli, Major Sanjay Soy. Thank you so much for joining us here in the studio. And viewers,